Right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, and entertainment. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, I think this is a first for us. We actually have one of our colleagues on with us today. If I'm not mistaken, it never happened before. So why don't you tell everybody who we got with us today on the show?
Yeah, we got somebody who's bounced around a little bit, worn a couple different hats. He's been a producer here, mostly a podcast host here. But let me tell you something. When it comes to entertaining on the network, very few are better than him. You know what I'm saying? So he's a Yankees fan. He's a Cowboys fan. I don't know how that happens.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into that. But he is one of the hosts of Corey, Nando, and Friends on Bettor Sports Network. And he's a friend of ours. Can't wait to interview him, Corey Parson. Corey, welcome to the show. How you doing?
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? Definitely glad to be talking with y'all and looking forward to having a conversation about the humble beginnings of the fantasy executive.
There you go. So you said it, Joe, the fantasy executive. He wears many hats. Usually it's a Yankee or a Brave or a Gamecock hat. So in honor of him, got to put my hat on. Can't do the interview without,
I love it.
without the hat. So the fantasy exec, how'd you get that nickname? Was it self-proclaimed? How did that come about? When did you start calling yourself that?
I don't know how much you guys follow the prospect scene or the baseball prospect scene or the Washington, D.C. sports scene, but I got a good buddy of mine who I haven't talked to in a couple of years. Need to holler at him. His name is Grant Parson. I don't know if y'all are familiar with him. Currently does a very popular radio show in Washington, D.C. One night back on SiriusXM Fantasy, I was producing his show, and he was talking about a couple of upcoming baseball prospects and how he had already had them on their fantasy teams because that's the kind of fantasy executive he was. And when I heard it, I was like, that's interesting, fantasy executive. And I told him, I'm going to steal that one. He said, go ahead, it's yours. And it's been the fantasy executive ever since.
The rest is history. So when it comes to your life, your career here, do you have a philosophy by which you live by?
I mean, just chase the dream. You know what I'm saying? Chase the dream, be passionate about the dream, chase the dream. You know what I'm saying? And if you are passionate about the dream and you know, continue to go after it full speed ahead, I do think in the long run, you'll have the best results. But really just got to be present, got to show up, got to have a good attitude, you know what I'm saying? And just continue to put your head down and work because it's very difficult. It is very difficult. It is not easy to be in this business, you know what I'm saying? So it definitely takes a lot of hard work, but you got to be able to, if you're not passionate about it, you may want to get into something else, but passion and the ability to deal with the ups and downs is what's very important.
Definitely agree. It's a very hard industry, making it work. That's the way you go about it. So we mentioned it off the top. You're from New York. You're a New Yorker just like us. So you're a Yankee fan. First thing we noticed about you. I got to ask you, were you first a fan of the Yankee hat and started wearing that, or the Yankee franchise?
It was a Yankee franchise. Growing up, I grew up in Harlem, but like kind of closer to the Washington Heights side of Harlem. So I'm basically grew up in the shadows of Yankee Stadium, you know what I'm saying? So having that experience growing up right by the stadium, walking distance to the stadium. And then, you know, when you get into grade school, you know what I'm saying? And it was probably around 85, 86, you know what I'm saying? Where kids in school were picking allegiances to their baseball teams. And I rolled with the New York Yankees, you know what I'm saying? As my squad, you know, Phil Rizzuto, you know what I'm saying? Bill White, the whole thing, watching the Yankees. And then, you know, obviously getting into the rivalries early with the Met fans, and then they go on to win the championship, just like that. You know what I'm saying? A few and far between, though. But then, yeah, those was the lean years to get started. But then you're right. It was the franchise, but then the hat, which has kind of become my logo of sorts. is really the most iconic piece of sportswear there is. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of just went.
You go anywhere in the world, you're gonna say Yankee hat.
Yeah, it kind of just went hand in hand. You know what I'm saying? And the color scheme, it goes with everything. You know what I mean? So, and it is a kind of a symbol of a representative of the biggest city in the world. So there you go.
Yeah, Corey made the Yankee hat more famous than the Yankee team.
Just like Jay-Z.
Nice.
So Corey, how about them Cowboys? How'd you become a Cowboys fan in New York?
This is so interesting, right? So my pops, big football fan when he was growing up. My pops used to run track. His favorite track athlete was the Bullet Bob Hayes. So when Bob Hayes was drafted by the Dallas Cowboy, he became a Dallas Cowboy fan. And I kind of just kept that tradition going, but multiplied it and times it by 10. Very first, might be my youngest memory of my life, but definitely of my sports life, was the catch, Dwight Clark making that catch against the Dallas Cowboys in the back of the end zone. I had to be 3 or 4 years old. I was heartbroken by it, crying underneath the table, you know what I'm saying? And that day forward, I feel like I've seen every snap of every Dallas Cowboy game since. There's been some good years, and there's been some incredibly lean and frustrating years, which, you know, I can see that streak continuing, you know what I mean? But
it's the curse of Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, I guess so. No, but just following his lead, you know what I'm saying? But then the interesting thing is, me and my son, our relationship is different. My son realized I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. He was like, well, let me find the rivals.
Tell me he's not an Eagles fan.
No, he's a Washington Commanders fan, you know? So yeah.
What do you and him think about the Commanders' new mascot?
We both think it's a joke. He's a Commander fan, you know, the team on the field, competition and stuff like that. But he knows that Dan Snyder and the organization leave a lot to be determined.
Yeah. So you're 2/3 away there from what I consider the worst fan in all sports, which is the Yankee, Cowboy, Laker fan. But you're not a Laker fan, thank goodness. No, so you were a Knicks fan, right?
I despise the Los Angeles Lakers. I did root. Listen, I don't want to seem like I'm that guy, you know what I'm saying, that just leaves his team. But 30 years, I mean, what do the Knicks organization expect from us? You know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up in the heyday, the glory days of New York Knicks basketball. The Garden is rocking, defense, you know what I'm saying? Those great New York Knicks teams of the 90s. But it's not like you have 30 years between that. And then this team has really been the laughingstock of sports for the better part of those 30 years. So, man, maybe about a decade or so ago, I was just like, man, I'm done here. You know what I'm saying? I'm done here. So, you know, people say, oh, you turned your back on the Knicks. You gave up on the Knicks. The Knicks turned their back on me. And the Knicks gave up on me. Now, here's my thing. In some kind of miracle world where the Knicks were to win a championship, people would say, would I claim the Knicks at that point? No, I would not. Now, what I would do, though, is I would go down to the Canyon of Heroes to a ticker tape parade just to make sure, like, this is a real thing.
Sure, you're not dreaming.
But other than that, I would tip my hat to the remaining New York Knicks fans, and I'll leave it at that.
Boy, it's been a long time since we've had a parade here. Holy moly. The Yankees parade and the Giants parades, right? And then the last time Giants parade was 2011. So that's what, 11 years?
Oh, no, the Mets, no, they didn't win the World Series. They went to it. They didn't win it.
Yeah, they went to the World Series in 2015. They did not win. So it's been over 10 years. Too long. The Knicks are a cursed franchise, so I don't know if they're the ones going to give us a parade.
No, it's not going to be the Knicks. It'll be one of the baseball teams.
What I always say about the Knicks, though, is if there was no salary cap, they'd be so good because Dolan would just spend all his money. But the way it is, you know, that's what happens. They're not going to ever win.
No, this is tough. They got a tough stretch ahead. They got one of the worst owners in sports. They're going to seem to do a good job with the Rangers. It seems like they got more credibility to the organization now, but you know, you still the consistency of just missing on John Morant, just missing on Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? It's difficult to deal with.
So, Corey, do you follow up with basketball though, even though you don't follow up with the Knicks?
Oh yeah, I follow up. I watch. I'm a league pass fanatic. I'm watching the league every night. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about daily routine. You know what I'm saying? From 7 o'clock till the time I go to bed, is scrolling and going through the NBA. You got a great product, fun sport. It's real good to bet on. You know what I'm saying? Had some success with that. A lot of good young athletes, great storyline. So definitely a big fan, but I try to avoid the New York Knicks, even with my betting. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had some horrific bad beats betting on or against the New York Knicks. So it's just like we've decided to go our separate ways.
Absolutely. Nick and I, we don't blame you whatsoever. All right, so let's get into younger Corey, right? So you went to South Carolina State University for school. What did you go to school for? Did you always want to do media? And when you were there, how did you keep yourself occupied? Like, what type of internships did you do? And what kind of activities did you like doing at school?
So basically, I got down here as a communications major. You know what I mean? But back in those days, it was a little bit different. This is pre-World Wide Web. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of was like, you're trying to crack into an elite field. You know what I mean? I always knew I was good at it. You know what I'm saying? Because I have a background of public speaking. You know what I'm saying? That my mother kind of instilled in us when we was young, the ability to communicate, you know what I'm saying, effectively, particularly in public. So that's what it was. But I ended up changing my major and got into criminal justice because I just wanted to move back to New York and get a job, you know what I'm saying, and go from there. So, but when I got down here, though, it was a good experience. It was a good 4 years. We used to stay. We had a good, solid group of friends. You know what I'm saying, and we used to hang out tough. We would go different places. We would, college kids, rent a van, drive around different homecomings and stuff like that. So we made our way around and did stuff like that. So that's basically where it was. I didn't my media didn't start 2 years later, when my media career started, and it was crazy. It was sitting on the couch. This is during the Michael Vick dog fighting scandal. I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm listening to Colin Cowherd tearing to Michael Vick, and it was always I always was a big fan of sports radio. I mean, the era that I grew up in New York with, I used to go to sleep with the radio under my pillow and listening to Yankee games. But what caught me is when I woke up in the morning show, Imus in the morning, and I was like, man, this is fantastic. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I want to be a morning show radio personality. That's how much I loved Imus in the morning, and a show that you can never put on the air now. You know what I'm saying? So, got away from that, got back, but then, fast forward, Colin Cowherd still being a sports entertainer, talk guy, still like sports shows, sports radio, whatever. But now I'm working and I'm listening to Cowherd just trash Michael Vick, but then he kind of took it too far. And I remember grabbing the phone to pick up the number to call. And I was like, I got to get my own show. You know what I'm saying? And from that moment right there, it was like a dedication to getting into sports media. And then things just started to happen. You know how they have regional sports channels.
Yep.
Comcast Sportsnet DC. I guess it was NBC Washington now, NBC Sports Washington now. They had a sportscaster challenge at I think it was still the MCI Center then, with currently Capital One Arena. And I went down there and I won it. And a part of winning it was getting a guest spot on a program they had called Washington Post Live. And I went on Washington Post Live and I killed it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was like, have you done this before? Right? And I was like, no, but I'm trying to get into it. And actually, when I was down there, I ran into Brian Mitchell. He used to play for the Washington Redskins. And I ran into Brian Mitchell and I got his information. And he said, shoot a text or, give a call to my producer. You know what I'm saying? While I was on Washington Post Live, it was right before the Super Bowl. And I had picked the New York Giants to upset the New England Patriots as they was getting ready to go undefeated. So I called it on the show and then got with the producer and took an internship at what is now known as ESPN 980. Back then it was WTAM 980. That's where I did my internship at. And then I did an internship at SiriusXM. And that's kind of where it really started at SiriusXM radio for me with that internship. I kind of learned the ropes of, working in a newsroom, seeing what it's like to be in the studio, getting to be around professional talent, you know what I'm saying? And then months later, they brought me back to the newsroom, this time as a part-time employee. And that's kind of how it all began.
So was it tough to leave criminal justice where
Not at all.
No,
I hated it. I didn't leave it. It left me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I got fired. I'm talking about, I got fired, must have been December of, I want to say maybe 09, something like that. December 09. And then I started working in the media around March of that next year. Would be March of, let's say 2010, whatever. And that's how I couldn't stand it no more. I was done. You know what I'm saying? Like I never was a type of person that could work like a regular job. You know what I mean? Because I don't really like people telling me what to do. You know what I'm saying? My mind is creative. You know what I'm saying? I've always got something going. And I've had some great jobs. And I'd be like, man, I can't do this. You know what I'm saying? And then it would just be like, whatever, I'm not coming back. You know what I mean? So, but in the media, I found something that I think is right for me.
So at SiriusXM, when you're producing there, I'm assuming you're doing mostly the fantasy stuff, and fantasy is getting really big on the mainstream. Is that where you said to yourself, well, maybe I should go towards this fantasy place rather than the route of the traditional talking about everything else? So how did you make that career path there?
So when I first started playing fantasy, probably about 4 or 5 years before I got to SiriusXM. When the football season came around, it took over. Fantasy football took over everything. That's all me and my friends talked about. You know what I'm saying? Our main league, our home league, the Empire, all we talked about. So when I got to SiriusXM, I'm just trying to work. You know what I'm saying? College sports, regular sports, whatever. Then I kind of linked up with the fantasy crew. And, okay, well, this was a natural fit. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm already into this, talking with my friends about it. So I was able to transition into it, kind of knew what storylines would fit and stuff like that. So, and I got into it. I was like, yeah, you know what? I still, to this day, think traditional sports talk show in the morning is best. But if that's not the case, then fantasy and betting is fine for me. But the dream is still to be a morning talk show. And you wouldn't even have to be sports. You can just talk about anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I could see you on Hot 97 replacing some people and just chopping it up or some kind of 105.
Yeah, I could definitely do that gig. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't want to live in New York, though. That's the problem.
Nah, you don't want to live here anymore. That's for sure. So at your time at Sirius, usually everybody has one, but give me a story about a time where you perhaps interacted with the Mad Dog.
Well, I got a couple of Mad Dog stories, but one of as people know, I fashion myself a media critic. And Chris Russo, obviously growing up in New York, pretty cool, whatever. But one day, it was around the time of the Daytona 500, and Chris Russo went on this rant saying that NASCAR drivers aren't athletes and just trashing the Daytona 500. The only reason anybody paid attention to it because it was a big crash at the end. I mean, he trashed the Daytona 500, trashed NASCAR, trashed drivers. The phone lines lit up, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, I'm listening to it. And I'm like, man, this is fantastic. You know what I'm saying? So the next day I go in and then I do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? On the Roto Experts, the fantasy show, you know what I'm saying? And it had the same reaction. So probably later on that week, I'm in the restroom of all places, and Chris walks in, you know what I'm saying? And I tell him the story as we're at the latrine, you know what I'm saying? And we had a good laugh about it, how easy it was to, like, you know, hype up the NASCAR fans. So, you know, you think some of these rants are spur of the moment or off the top of the head, but it's rants that you can bring back, you know what I'm saying, year after year to different audience and stuff like that, and still have the same effect. So you really saw the power of what type of dynamic talent that was to pull that off in that moment, you know what I'm saying? And I guarantee you he might do it again this year because it's such an easy one to draw a reaction from people, you know what I'm saying?
So I think one of your best rants, which I totally agree on, is your rant on Babe Ruth. Tell Joe here, who's a believer, why Babe Ruth probably isn't real. Or at least he was a person, but his stats maybe fluff.
Nobody's never seen Babe Ruth play. And then when you look at like footage of Babe Ruth, the only person you really see in the footage is Babe Ruth. Like it's really nobody else but Babe Ruth in a lot of his footage, right? So basically it kind of became like, so basically what it was I don't remember what the scenario was, but I had did a show with Craig Carton in between him leaving WFAN and
for Fantasy Sports Network, his morning show, right?
Yeah, that show. I did that show with him. And some kind of way or another, we got into a discussion, and then bam, Babe Ruth is fake. You know what I'm saying? And I took it and I went with it, and we had a good time with that one. And then this past year with the Aaron Judge thing going on, I was like, oh, Babe Ruth is fake. Let me go back to this one. And being a new network and a new start and stuff like that, it went over really well. But yeah, but nobody's seen Babe Ruth. All the footage is still. So basically the joke is Babe Ruth is a baseball Santa Claus. You know what I'm saying? He's a baseball version of Santa Claus. He's a fictional character made to make kids feel good about baseball.
All right, Corey, I got another conspiracy for you. Did Will Chamberlain's 100-point game happen?
Well, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Because I've seen this circulating here and there every now and then, right? And we want to talk about Babe Ruth not being real. All right, let's say Babe Ruth isn't real. Did Wilt score 100 points? We don't have footage of that game either. All we have is the picture of him holding up the 100, right?
There is no footage of that. I've never seen footage from that game. That's interesting. We need to find a box score or something. I'm gonna use that. Thank you very much.
There you go, Joe. Joe, I thought you were gonna ask Corey about Wilt Chamberlain's off the field stats, off the court stats.
That's probably true.
All of it, right?
So Corey, you talked about working with Carton. Carton we've had on our show. I worked with him a little bit at WFAN in the mornings.
When?
2013, maybe 2012. He's always very generous in the fact that
I probably just missed you.
Oh, you were at WFAN?
Yeah, probably I did a 6-month span. I was working at WFAN and at SiriusXM, but not the SiriusXM in New York, the SiriusXM in DC. So I was traveling, you know what I'm saying? Like, I bust my ass to get into this business. I used to sleep on the floor in the studio 2 and 3 nights a week, you know what I'm saying? So what ended up happening was he was good. He was a good guy to work with, cool customer, you know what I'm saying? Definitely learned some stuff from him, you know what I mean? And haven't had a chance to see him recently, but we spoke a number of times. We still keep in touch. I actually did a guest spot. I wish I could find it now. A fantastic guest spot on his show in the beginning of it, And then, it was so good. They was like, it kind of was like Regal, the lady from Regal Park. Like it was a legendary
Yeah,
phone call.
Doris.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was a legendary phone call. So we had a good time with that right there. So but now next time I get up there, I'll get a chance to kick it with him, hopefully. Or maybe, if I go to Super Bowl this year, maybe I'll get a chance to see him out there.
Well, what I could say about Craig, you could definitely find him in Staten Island in the summers, on South Beach. Myself and his son Sonny were playing some softball this past summer. Craig came out, bought the team Ralph's Ices, so very generous guy. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And Sonny's good people too. You know what I'm saying? I had a chance to meet all of his sons. You know what I'm saying? They show love, so that's what's up.
I think you got to do. I know you and Craig, you're on at the same time, a little competition, but maybe you get a little pre-recorded interview with Craig. Air it one day.
No, that'd be cool. You know what I'm saying? We're definitely going to get together. You know what I mean? So I think if I was still in New York now, I think we'd probably still be doing more stuff with Craig. You know what I'm saying? But I do think before it's all said and done, me and Craig will reconnect.
Did he pick you to be his co-host of the morning, or you just happened to be there?
It was one of those things that kind of was meant to be, because nobody loved Craig Carton as much as I did. So we met, we shook hands, whatever. And then it was funny because like everybody kind of knew, that people that were working at FNTSY at the time was like, yeah, it's probably Corey. It's probably Corey if he does something with us, whatever. And, he was doing something with Nando and him and Nando were talking, and Nando kept telling him, you got to talk to Corey. You got to talk to Corey. You got to talk to Corey. You know what I'm saying? So he called me up and we came in the studio and we did 20 minutes together, right? And at the end of that 20 minutes, when we cut the microphone off, he looked at me and he's like, you're right. You are good. And I was like, at that moment, that was the validation. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
At that moment, I was like, I knew I wasn't fucking crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, he was like, we can do something together. And, I think the first maybe 2 or 3 weeks, it kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start. But then when we got rolling, we really got rolling. And then bam, it was gone.
Sure it was. So you bounced around a bunch of different places, right? So you were podcast host at The Athletic. You've written and you hosted videos for Sports Illustrated, right? I worked for NBC Sports Edge. We'll get to that, a little later on. But explain the process of not really having a stable situation, having to kind of move around, bounce around to a couple of different companies, cover different places, right? Your roles have been tweaked here and there a little bit, right? So explain the process of bouncing around, but ultimately like still getting to do what you enjoy doing and how each place differed from each other.
I was not a great employee towards the end of my time at SiriusXM. You know what I'm saying? I think I had outgrown the position. By this time, nobody else probably knew it, but I knew that, I was doing more than my role. I was carrying 5 hours of radio in the morning. You know what I'm saying? That was critically acclaimed, but I wasn't getting credit for it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of a tough time, you know what I'm saying? So that situation came to an end, which, there's no hard feelings about that on my end, whatever. And then, then after that, it's like everything I was saying was validated when the whole show came tumbling down. You know what I'm saying? And they pulled the show off. And then I kind of got a chance about August, November, 5 months later, reunited with the FNTSY camp and really carried them for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Like that platform that they have now, Sports Grid, that I made that happen. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even going to front. You know what I'm saying? They have from the days of the Roto experts to what they have now. You know what I'm saying? I was the bridge that got them to that point. But once again, that's a tough bunch to work with over there. You know what I'm saying? Not to be disparaging of them and not to be anybody who's thinking about work with them. And not to say that if I was not to, ever take work back there with them again in the future. You know what I'm saying? There's been, somebody said this, somebody said that. But when that came to an end, kind of was around the time when sports betting took off. So when we got into the sports betting mode, I got some very, very good friends in the fantasy industry. Ian Ritchie and Scott Atkins. They run full-time fantasy in the Fantasy Football World Championship. They used to have the Scout Fantasy platform back in the day, helped them build out that, introduce the audience to Tommy G, you know what I'm saying? Guys like Dr. Roto, whatever. And that spot took off, you know what I'm saying? Adam Ronis, this time over there as well. So when they got involved after, their thing with Scout flamed out and they got involved with Sports Illustrated, naturally, I was going to go over there with them, already having a familiarity with working with the Maven people and knowing what they like, and they know what I can do and stuff like that. So bounced around there, and then, we hit it. And then we got a chance to get to the mainstream media with NBC Sports. And, we figured we were going to be there for a while, but they don't know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what they're doing. And here's the thing. The more you be in this industry, the more you realize a lot of people don't know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And the best bet may be for you to do it yourself.
So you've already mentioned this before, but Nick and I would have to ask you, the NBC Sports layoffs in regard to what they are doing in terms of bringing talent over. More specifically, I'm going to mention his name, Matthew Berry, right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? And again, this is a safe space here. So,
yeah.
But
I don't think I don't have no hard feelings. I love Matthew Berry, one of my favorite people in the industry. You know what I'm saying? I consider Matthew Berry a friend. I don't mind them bringing in Matthew Berry and all of that stuff. I think the bigger problem with that is they didn't really know what they were doing in the space. You know what I'm saying? They got into the betting space with a bad plan. I tried to give them a better plan. They continued to go with a bad plan. And at some point, you know what I'm saying? You're putting a product out there that has 14 people watching it, but you're paying these people, you know what I'm saying? We gave them several opportunities to put a better product out there that would have been able to churn out numbers and probably keep the shop running. They went against that. Maybe the inside of that was all messed up. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they should have been a part of NBC Sports longer ago. Maybe they should have never strayed away from the Roto World brand. You know what I'm saying? So, it looks like it wasn't ran well. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was going to give them an opportunity to put some good stuff out there. They decided not to put that good stuff out there as far as in the betting space. They're doing a fabulous job with their fantasy stuff, though. But yeah, that was it. You know what I'm saying? And, we walked away from each other and, they, not walked away from each other, but they walked away, layoffs and stuff like that. The fresh round of layoffs. So it's no hard feelings. You know what I'm saying? The media is an upside down business right now. There's going to be more layoffs coming. You know what I'm saying? But they had a chance, in my opinion, to put a better product out there, and they just didn't.
Yeah, we've all been victim to these layoffs, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes in this industry, unfortunately. But now you are hosting on Bettor Sports Network, Corey, Nando, and Friends. So how did that opportunity come about for you? And tell us your origin stories of linking up with Nando all those years back.
Well, when I was producing Roto Experts in the morning, Nando used to be a guest. He was a real good guest, you know what I'm saying? Consistent, solid. He would come on, he did well. When I met him in person, we just clicked automatically. You know what I'm saying? I'm a fan of his, he's a fan of mine. And when we worked together, it was very good stuff as well. We won an award for our work together. I believe we did a lot of great years, a lot of great things with the Roto Experts in the morning. Originally with me, Scott Engel and Adam Ronis. The original program, probably those first 2 NFL seasons, probably nothing better than that. And then when they morphed and went to different rotations, but when we finally got it back to with me and Nando from like 9 to 11 with the Fantasy Funhouse, that right there, nobody's ever done that before. You know what I'm saying? That was award winning. We got hardware for that. Everybody talks about that. You know what I'm saying? So that was out there. That chemistry have set foundation laid. But then Nando is really from an editorial standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Nando, that's where he really works at. That's his excellence. That's his expertise. Great host, but editorial, you know what I'm saying, and what he can do to run your organization is where he stands out at. So he left, went to the Athletic, got more into that stuff, you know what I'm saying, and I continued to grind around and stuff like that. And then a little birdie told me, in about November of 2022, right? 2022? No, we just passed. So about November 21, a little birdie told me that, you know what I'm saying, there could be some changes at SiriusXM, and that, Matt Deutsch may reach out to me. And I talked to Matt Deutsch on December 30th, 2021. Me and Matt Deutsch had our first conversation, and he told me he was trying to do something to put something together. And I was like, I can't help you right now because I have a full-time job, but I know some people that you should meet, you know what I'm saying? And, put him on touch with Lawrence Jackson, you know what I'm saying? And guys like that. And, I just went through about my way, you know what I'm saying? Working my job. And then boom, I got laid off. And the first person I heard from was Matt Deutsch, you know what I'm saying? And then after that, you know what I'm saying? The ball got rolling. And then before you know it, you know what I'm saying? I got, an idea that it would be me and Nando, which obviously is not you can't really, you couldn't leave that out there. You know what I'm saying? With me and Nando, if that was an opportunity to get that done again, I think it was going to be a chance to do it. And then you add the collectible element to it now too. You know what I'm saying? So now we're doing something totally different. The fantasy, the betting, and now the collectibles piece too. And it's just like we picked up just like that and we're able to get rolling. So you know what I'm saying? That's I'm feeling pretty good about that right now. And, and listen, enjoying doing these solo shows recently too, that I've been doing while Nando's on paternity leave. I think, I think that's a skill that you have to have in this business. You know what I'm saying? You have to have the ability, especially if there's going to be budget cuts and stuff like that. The ability to be a one-man team is something that people got to work on because it can keep you employed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I definitely know what you're saying in that regard because this, I do some basketball play-by-play. This past weekend, I had to do 2 games of basketball solo. Nope.
Yeah.
I had to do play-by-play, color commentary, producer, graphics, shot clock, scoreboard. Very difficult, but you're totally right where you got to be able to do it all now. And but it takes a lot of skills. So to be able to sit there and talk to yourself for 2 hours, very challenging. And
yeah, no doubt. And some of the greats is, listen, you got some play-by-play people out there that can do that. But those are like legendary type people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. like that's like, you know what I'm saying? But I like to listen to people, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't have no shame in that, and listening to people and trying to see what they're doing and how I can make that into my own.
Absolutely. So betting, it has exploded now. You were living in a state where it's not legal to bet, but you're still in the mix, of course.
Funny how that happened. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So what would you say is the easiest thing or team or sport to bet on?
To me, it's the NBA. I think the NBA has some tells in it, right? And I've had success in the NBA. And really what you can do in the NBA is like you can find teams and ride those teams. And then, you can, throughout the course of a season, I'll find 3 or 4 teams to ride. Like so far this season, I identified the Indiana Pacers very early. And I was kind of got in on the beginning of that Pacer run. And they've been very good, very profitable, right? Last year, after the All-Star break, the Dallas Mavericks couldn't be touched. You know what I'm saying? So what the thing with the NBA is you'll get tells, right? You can see a team coming. When that team clicks, you can hop on them. And then there's teams, where there's teams that you can fade too. So I think the to me in the NBA, the data is easy to read. The information is easy to find. So I've been successful with it.
So Is there a team year after year, it doesn't matter the sport, that you're definitely always going to look to hammer? And is there a team that you're like not touching? I guess the not touching team's got to be the Knicks, right?
I don't fool with the Knicks. You know what I'm saying? Year after year, a team. No, you find little trends throughout the course of the year. Like the one I rode this year, the Baltimore Ravens at home. The Ravens are terrible at home. They're terrible ATS team at home. They tend to win the games. They never cover the spread. And there was some times this year, you know what I'm saying, where just, that Baltimore Raven, fading that Baltimore Raven team alone. And I was fading them down the stretch too. You know what I'm saying? So it really, that really helped my NFL this year. But, and then the first half of the season, the Atlanta Falcons at home, you know what I'm saying? Was able to get that. And then the middle part of the season, the Carolina Panthers at home. So you find these little trends that you can ride to be successful throughout the course of the year. It's like reading a storybook. You know what I'm saying? It's this NFL, NBA, any sports season is a story. You know what I'm saying? And you kind of can pick up on the characters throughout.
So Joe knows this. One of my favorite things to bet, which is, usually hits at least like 15 weeks of the NFL season since 2010. And that is always bet against the Jets. Ever since Victor Cruz went 99 yards down the sideline, that was it. Easy wins against the Jets, right, Joe, when you place your bets?
Yeah, I mean, the franchise still hasn't recovered from that. The Giants went on to that Super Bowl run, and the Jets have only had one winning season ever since, which was the Ryan Fitzpatrick season, which was a little bit of a fluke. But yeah, I mean, I think another trend this year was the Giants in one-score games. How many one-score games did they play, right? So I agree with Corey in that sense, where you do find those little things here and there.
Hey,
I'm curious.
Cruz play, it's funny you mentioned that Victor Cruz play. Nobody really talks about that. But that was, if you remember, which I'm sure you guys probably do, the Jets, man, that joint was jumping. That joint was Jet Life Stadium. The Jets had all the momentum. That one play shifted that entire game. And the Giants listen, I'm the Dallas Cowboy fan here. So I'm not that fond of the New York Giants. But they, in those runs in 07 and 11, it was just a play here, a play there that transformed the whole thing. They shouldn't have won that game against the Jets. They don't win that game, they don't go on that run.
Right. Yeah, late season, they always seem to turn it on. That's for sure. So as we start wrap up here, Corey, we have to ask you, what would you say in your life or your career is a I'm right moment? So even by that is a time or place where you wanted to pursue something, you asked somebody for advice, they said, Corey, don't do that. That's not going to work out. And you were like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately, you will see why it is that I'm right.
Well, I think this whole journey is the why I'm right moment. You know what I'm saying? Just the fact to get into this industry, you know what I'm saying? And taking the risk to be here. Like, I've sacrificed a lot to do this. You know what I'm saying? I don't have the things a lot of other people have is, with the big, beautiful family life and stuff like that. When you get into this, you got to dig all the way in. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it causes me to have to sleep on the couch. You know what I'm saying? And then it just gets worse after that. But you know what I mean? But I'm thankful that I have the opportunity. And, hopefully we really get a chance to do some big things moving forward. You know what I mean? Because, the betting in the sports and stuff is cool, but I think it's some bigger fish to fry out there as well.
Corey, you watch any reality TV or you have no time with all the NBA?
I try not to.
All right.
Why? What are you talking about?
No, I just feel like you're a guy, maybe you're checking in on some pop culture. I know you're into all the controversies with the media that are non-sports as well. So just wanted to see where you're at with that.
Nah, no reality TV. I don't really get into it. I try to avoid, like, you don't understand. Like, I really watch a lot of sports, right? So it's like from like September to like June, you know what I mean?
And you work for September through December, you're working 7 days a week.
Yeah, basically, you know what I'm saying? And that's sports, right? And then we'll get out of that. But then we got an NBA season that'll take us to Father's Day. And then when Father's Day gets here, I'll throw on like the House of Dragons. You know what I'm saying? And I'll catch up with what everybody else was doing. I'll get a chance to catch up with them between Father's Day and Labor Day. That's my window right there to be like a regular citizen.
Gotcha. All right. And what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on another fellow Corey Gamble?
I get a kick out of this guy. You know what I'm saying? I love that Kanye West said, "Where did he come from?" You know, so was he made in the lab? I don't know. It's just so funny that you see Kris Jenner's sugar baby, Kris Jenner's boyfriend, chilling with the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? Well, how this happened? And I'm like, yo, who is this guy? I see him everywhere. Why is he chilling with the Dallas Cowboys? You know, that's Kris Jenner's boyfriend. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is the guy that Kanye said was made in the lab. And then when I found out that he sits in Jerry Jones's box when he goes to Cowboy games, I was like, you know what? I got to meet me a Kris Jenner.
You almost did in the airport recently, right?
Yeah, at the airport. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was on the one. You know what I mean? So, but I was like, nah, Botox can't done. You know what I'm saying? I was like, all right, lady. Yeah. She was like, you want to sit in first class? I'm like, I'm fine. I couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying?
That's great. Corey, I got a question for you.
Yep.
Nick always puts this on the rundown, so I always have to ask it, right? You don't have to necessarily give us your birthday, but I want to know what your zodiac sign is, because I'm into this crap, and
I'm a Libra.
You're a Libra. We're all about balance, the scales, you're diplomatic type of person.
Definitely diplomatic.
Air signs, very good, great communicators, right? So, yeah, a little bit about the Libra.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Yeah.
I think so. What part of where are you from?
Where am I from? Like,
Yeah.
where do we live, or?
Like, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school?
Oh, well, we grew up in Staten Island.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was born in Brooklyn, but I moved to Staten Island at a very young age, and I grew up on Staten Island and met Nick in middle school. We reconnected like sometime after high school or sometime after college, and then we became the best of friends, and we started this.
Oh, that's cool. That's what's up. Did y'all go to Farrell?
No, that was my rival. I went to St. Joseph by the Sea. He went to Staten Island.
I went to Staten Island Tech, which is around the corner from Monsignor Farrell. So
okay, cool. Yeah.
You got some ties to Farrell?
Well, it's the CHSAA, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just, I think I say that we're all a family. We're all together. Speaking of Kris Jenner, Lamar Odom, look at that. So there we got one out there.
Remember when Phil Jackson signed Lamar Odom to the Knicks? Was that the last straw for you? Did that kind of trigger it?
No, the last straw for me, it was kind of that Phil Jackson era. I knew Phil Jackson was going to be a disaster. I knew he was just stealing the money. He spent most of his time in Montana on his ranch. He was barely in the city. You know what I'm saying? So that team needed RJ Barrett to be a Rose Rule player. That's what they needed. And RJ Barrett is not a Rose Rule player. He's not Ja. He's not Zion. You know what I'm saying? And it's not going to happen in free agency. It's going to take they're going to have to draft their star. And if you think that the New York Knicks are going to be better through the NBA draft, then you know something the rest of us don't.
What a way to end it. Oh boy. Cursed franchise. That's what they are. There's a list of 15 to 20 cursed franchises there, and they're on the list. And hopefully maybe one day in the next lifetime they'll be able to win. But Corey, we thank you for your time. You're hysterical. We really, really appreciate it. What we do here is we always give our guests the last word. So if there's anything else you would like to share, if there's anything else you would like to promote, one thing I do want to get in your last words, though, you predicted the Giants Super Bowl win, right? So if you have any predictions for the Super Bowl this time around, we would like to hear them. But we really thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And, anything you want to say in your last words, go on ahead.
Well, I want to thank you guys for having me on, and I want to tell everybody out there, you know what I'm saying, that to keep the faith and to keep pushing, and everything's going to be all right.
All right, there you have it. So everybody check out Corey, Nando, and Friends 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bettor Sports Network for 2 hours, interactive show. Corey will answer all your questions for sure. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. For our very special guest, the fantasy executive, Corey Parson. For my coach, Joe Calabrese, I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.